Hello class, we're going to start this video. It should be a short video on point of view. It's going to be based on the material that you read for this week. Let's start with first person point of view. So first person point of view, we are looking at two different types. It can be through the major or main character, or it can be through a minor character. So first person point of view, we're thinking of words like I. So we're getting it from one character's perspective. So for a major character, we would think of somebody like Sammy or Sylvia, Sylvia from the lesson. Everything was from her point of view. In the A&P short story that we read, everything was from Sammy's point of view. And when we get it through the major character, we really get a lot of the voice from that character. We start to understand them better. We get their interiority, or we understand their minds. We get to see how they interact with other characters and their impressions of them. And it's a nice way to kind of put the reader into that character's shoes. The other type that we have is when we get first person through a minor character. So this is somebody on the outside who is watching the action, and they might be a part of the story, but they're not the main story. They're usually reporting on the main character, or they're telling you what the main character does. This is also an interesting choice because we can get some impressions from the narrator on how the narrator feels about that character. An example of a minor character would be in our reading for this week, Rose for Emily, in which we get a town person who is the narrator. So the town person isn't a major character within the story, but we get everything from that narrator's perspective. One thing that we need to note is the believability of that narrator, of that first person narrator. Is this a reliable narrator, or is this narrator unreliable? For example, we look at Sammy. Is Sammy telling the truth in the ways that that story happened? I would say that this is pretty reliable. He doesn't flatter himself in any way. He really just gives the story as it happens. Whereas if we look at a character like Mama in everyday use, is she reliable in her perceptions of Dee? Could she be misleading the reader some, or seeing Dee in a non-flattering light? So we really have to decide when we get that first person point of view, is the narrator being honest, or should we doubt some of what's being said? Then we move to third person point of view. So third person point of view, we have omniscient. This is where the narrator sees the minds of all the characters. The narrator can tell you what each character is thinking, what each character is doing, no matter how far apart they are. The narrator knows everything and can see everything. And we get the limited third person point of view. This is where the narrator can see the mind of one of the characters, or maybe two of the characters, but not all of them. So we're able to understand the motivation or the feelings or the emotions of one of the characters only as that character interacts with others. And then we get the objective point of view. This is where the narrator reports. So the narrator can see everything that's happening, even if what's happening at the same time is far away. But the narrator doesn't provide any of the internal thoughts of the characters. So we could see this in Hills Like White Elephants, where the narrator reports on their dialogue, reports on what they're doing, but we don't see the true minds of either character. We don't get their motivation. We don't know what they're really feeling, despite what the words say. Be aware of these characteristics in the stories that we are reading, and think about how it would be different if we had a third person or a first person instead of what the story actually gave us.